Okay, got an autopsy question here. If it's in your will not to have an autopsy, will you still get an autopsy? Well, there's a reason for the autopsy. It's because we don't know your cause of death. So if we don't know your cause of death, you need an autopsy. So if you put in your will, I do not consent, I do not give you permission to do an autopsy, it doesn't really work that way. You need a cause of death on your death certificate. So if you have like life insurance or something that needs that death certificate, you need it filled out completely. So if you don't have a cause of death, if you're found at home with no cause of death, they're going to send you to help figure out why you died. And also, if you're a homicide, they need to do the autopsy so they can list the cause of death and prosecute the person that killed you. So if your will says no autopsy, but you were murdered, if somebody took your life, then you will get an autopsy. So the dead have rights, but sometimes they don't have the rights that you want. If you don't want an autopsy, you might need one, so you might get one. Does that make sense? So if you don't want one, but you don't have a cause of death, you're gonna get one. Now, if you do have a cause of death, you don't need one. But a family member might want an autopsy, so a family member can pay for a private autopsy to see what your cause of death is, if that matches up to whatever the doctor put, if you had cancer, if you had a bad heart, if there's a reason why you died and the family doesn't trust it, they can pay for a private autopsy. They can find a pathologist that'll do it. So if you have a cause of death, you don't need one, so your will be honored. But if you don't have a cause of death, the coroner or a doctor can request you for an autopsy so we can figure out what your cause of death is, so we can fill out that death certificate so you can be complete. You complete me. Does that make sense? I'm just rambling here. So yeah, you can put you don't want one, but sometimes you need one. And I think your will is read like weeks after you die. So if you don't want an autopsy, you better start telling family members, tell your spouse, tell your kids, tell your next of kin that his wishes or her wishes or their wishes were not to be autopsied. Same thing with like embalming. If you don't want to be embalmed, you need to tell all your next of kin, I don't want to be embalmed. I don't want a funeral. I just want to be cremated. You need to start telling everybody. You need to go to the funeral home and make arrangements to tell them that you don't want to be embalmed. You don't want a funeral, you just want to be cremated, or whatever your wishes are. You need to voice what you need, what you want done, because if you don't tell nobody, we ain't gonna know what you want, right? You gotta tell people. Like I tell everybody, cremate me, dump me in the creek, I don't mind.